Greetings, Earthlings. America, America. You know, if you're black, you're grieving. If you're a normal black person, you're grieving. You're grieving because because today is a triggering day. Yesterday was a triggering day. The day before yesterday was a triggering day. But you know, I've lost a loved one. My late grandfather, David Ogogo, he was my everything. This man made me feel like I was capable of everything. And I know girls say that about their fathers. Oh my God, my dad makes me feel like there's nothing I could never accomplish. My grandfather believed in educating a girl, a woman. He bought my grandma meals and boons. He married her and took her out of the village. He brought her to the city. So there was no interference from the villagers about how she should live her life or whether she should cook and clean. My grandmother herself, their marriage was not rosy, by the way. They didn't like each other. For a big portion of that marriage, they did not get along. But the one thing she's admitted to me herself is, your grandfather was a good man. He treated me well. He allowed me to work. I grew up in a house where my grandmother, who is now in her late 70s, went to work. The thing is flying behind me. So, and she was allowed to have house helps to help raise the kids, clean, cook while she was working. She wasn't just a secretary at a British firm. She was also a business owner. She owned a shop in Kariakor in Nairobi where she made shoes. She had workers there. She had employees. My grandmother, when my grandfather would piss her off, I think I was about third grade, class three. How old are you when you're in class three, seven, eight, nine? So maybe nine, because you're 11 in class five and you're 10 in class four. So I was nine. Yes, I remember. We lived in Upper Hill. My grandfather told me for some reason that his wife was upset with him and he went to Mombasa for work and he came back and he bought her lesos, wrappers, these beautiful cloths that have these Swahili proverbs at the bottom. And he bought a stack of them and he asked me, do you think she liked them? I said, yeah, they're beautiful. And I kept picking one by one and looking. And so he consulted me. I guess he assumed I'm an innocent and I have two X chromosomes, so maybe I'll be a better person to ask about what would make his wife, who has two X chromosomes, happy. Because, yeah, the daughters were not close to their mother. My mom and her twin sister were close to dad. And so he consulted me. He asked me what I thought, and I told him, I think she liked them. These are beautiful, like the colors are nice. I think I remember seeing purple and green and just different bright colors with nice messages like a wife is a beautiful gem and just these nice Swahili things. He knew how to give gifts. When he went to London, my mom tells me he'd come back with, like, he knew this is a skirt that Betty would like and chocolate, and like my grandfather knew how to give gifts. My grandfather would hold my hand after school and tell me, Sharon, let's go for a walk. And we'd go for a walk hand in hand, talking about how my day was. And he'd buy me queen cakes and he bought me fries and chicken. And he said, I can't eat these. I'm a diabetic, but enjoy yourself. You're young. And he used to make me read the paper to him when I was we moved to Kongoni when I was in class four. So I was 10. That's in South Sea. And then it was a flat. And when I had issues, he used to make me read the paper to him in the morning. When his driver would come, he would tell me, he'll not be comfortable sitting with his boss, so I'll go have my porridge in the bedroom. And so his driver would come and sit. He was a government official. He had a driver, so a senior government official. So he would sit. I remember this man. I don't remember his name, but he'd sit in the living room and he'd have porridge with us. When we had a house help, because we had a few house helps before, we didn't need one because my mom was just cool with me participating, because boys and girls cooked and cleaned when I grew up. So to this day, well, I'll say to this day loosely because it's the last time I was in Kenya, I go to my uncle's house and I have period pain, he'll cook for me. It doesn't just have to be period pain. My uncle is a really good cook. He lived in India, he cooked for himself. He was not one of those kissy men who've given kissy men a horrible reputation by turning campus girls into wives, girlfriends into wives. No, my uncle would cook. My uncle Peter can cook. My uncle Moses can cook. My uncle John can cook. And each of them has been married to someone outside of our tribe. So, and like men and women in my family cooked and cleaned. So when I meet men who are messy, I am shook. I'm genuinely like scared for my life because I'm the sort of woman who cooks and cleans because I was raised to cook and clean. My cousin Mandela will cook and clean because he was raised that way. My cousin Spencer will cook because he was raised that way. It is beyond me to meet people who cannot cook and clean and they're 15. I cooked ugali the first time when I was 11. My mom told me, go check and see if the water is boiled. And she told me if it has bubbles at the bottom of the pan, it's about to boil. And that's okay for when you're cooking rice. You wash it and you put it in. And I would stand on a stool and watch my mom do this from a safe distance. I would stand on a stool from a safe distance and watch my mother do this. I watched my grandmother cook. I grew up in a house with my grandparents and my mom got me out of wedlock. She was young, 19, 20, and of course, her mother kicked her out, but then my grandfather came back from London and said, no, these are our children, no matter what happens. And so he insisted that my mother had to stay with us because, like, where was she going to go? Pregnant, single, unmarried, and single mom at that. And then after school, I remember my grandfather coming home early on some days and saying, Vava, oh gosh, Baba is grandma, but my aunties fell behind the heater. So he'd say, come, let's go fix something in the kitchen. And I would just sit on a stool or stand on the side while he fixed me a sandwich, while he made me an omelette, while he made French toast. Like, my grandfather didn't just cook tea and boil eggs. He cooked well. I remember the first time he saw a cockroach in the house. I was in class 2 or 3. He lost his mind. Like everything came to a halt. He said, tomorrow, I think the following day was a weekend. It definitely was not a Saturday because we did not clean on Saturdays. He didn't go to church, but he respected Seventh-day Adventist beliefs. And we don't work on Sabbath, Friday sunset to Saturday sunset. Or at least we are not supposed to, unless it's humanitarian work. So if you're a doctor, if you're a nurse, if you're a mom, if you're a caregiver of someone who's sick or someone who has a disability, those are the exceptions. There are exceptions to the rule. So, yeah. And my grandfather made us clean that house with warm soapy water, top to bottom. What we did not wash in that house was the ceiling. This man literally boiled water. He was so paranoid about dirt. He boiled water, he put it in buckets, he put soap, he poured water everywhere. And we're like, oh my God, who is going to mop up all this water? And he said, the day I see another cockroach in this house, he said, I buy soap, I go to work, I clean myself. He washed his own socks. My grandfather had a red bucket. So because he was a diabetic and he was scared of injuries, he used to really layer Vaseline on his feet and then put on really thick socks. I love thick socks to this day. I love him. So I guess there are things about him I still keep with me. And so he'd wear these thick socks to prevent any injuries because we know that diabetic foot, so diabetes affects your nerves so that you're not as sensitive to pressure and pain. So you could very easily like step on something like a needle or a thorn or I don't know, a safety pin, anything. And then because your nerves are not as sensitive to pain because of the damage of just having this free flowing, this freely floating around your bloodstream glucose, damaging your nerves, and then you basically don't feel pain and pressure as much, which is why diabetics accidentally burn themselves, cut themselves without realizing. And then because of that, your blood just being doused in sugar, like it's just, it attracts bacteria and you get sick. So you find you have a fever, you go to hospital, turns out, oh, there's an injury you had that you did not register as painful and it's become infected. And that's how diabetics lose limbs. You know, you lose a toe, because of athlete's foot that becomes super infected because again, you don't feel pain. If I, with normal blood sugar, develop athlete's foot, I'll be able to feel some discomfort. I've had athlete's foot before. You know, you're in boarding school, your socks don't dry properly. You in Limuru, you put them on anyway because you're like, oh my God, I will be punished. I will be beaten if I don't have like the right socks or white socks on. Like, oh my God, school uniform and colonialism. So anyways, my grandfather used to wash his own socks. So he's like, why would I let a woman wash socks for me? Like, I think at some point his children did wash his socks, but he said, they'd gotten smelly and he was conscious of that. And he really struggled before he finally let me clean his wound. And I remember he'd hold his foot and he's trying to reach for it. And he's already in his 50s. And I'm like, what are you doing? Just let me clean the wound for you. He's like, you won't know how to do it right. And we had these arguments. We argued like a couple. And then I asked him, can I inject you? The first time I saw him drawing in insulin, he's like, you'll kill me. I'm like, I've seen you do it. So he's like, no, walk out. I don't want you to learn how to do this. Yes, like, you will kill me. Whenever bad things happen in my life, I miss him more. He passed away in June of 2005 when I was 17. I didn't get to say goodbye. My mom tells me he planned for his funeral. He was ready to go. He asked, what prayer have you not prayed for me? He spoke with my aunt. He asked to see my cousin, whom he hadn't seen in many years, to retract a certain nickname they'd given him, like Shorty, because he was short. Because now he'd gotten his growth spurt and Kevin grew tall and he looked for everyone. I don't know why he didn't ask for me. I feel like he knew if he did, I'd beg him to just stay a little longer. Every time I go through a tough day, I get home and then I think, what would David Ogogo have me do? What would DMO have me do? And at that point, I'm not asking what Jesus would have me do because Jesus is perfect. I want this imperfect person who loved me perfectly to be here telling me what I should do because I don't remember him giving bad advice. I remember him threatening children who bullied me. I remember him literally walking out with a Maasai sword, threatening to chop off the limbs of children when they bullied me or when they harassed me in some way. And I would walk to school confidently, knowing as long as he was alive, no one could touch me. And so I have been dealing with the nonsense that is men lately and thinking, I swear I wish this man were alive to just threaten them. while I was in Kenya, a friend of mine, we are not friends anymore, but a friend of mine then, we were friends in high school all the way through, and he was thinking of settling down. And I felt like I knew the lady who was a good fit for him. So I told him, and I'll say it in Swahili because it really captures the emotion. Mi nitakusumbua. Like I will be bothersome to you. You will have no peace with me because I'm very liberal. And he said, no, but I am also liberal. And I said, no, you're not. You think you are, but you're not. I just don't think of him as a very self-aware person. And I did have a crush on him for the longest time, but then I realized I liked the idea of him, not him as a person. Him as a person, yeah, we were just never going to work. And my girlfriend told me the same. She's like, Sharon, I don't think you know this guy. He and I have had a thing. It's the idea of him. And it hit me. It's like, yeah, this girl knows me well. So notice how me and my friends don't fight over men. Just notice, because it's absolutely useless to fight over men. Men have never been the prize, women are. Because I've said this before and I'll say it again. He who finds a wife finds a good thing, even a basic bitch. Like, if she can't cook and clean, she'll still be good for you somehow. She has a body that you will enjoy. She will listen to you. Men use us for free therapy all the time. Ask me why I stopped taking male clients and my mental health improved, why I got out of my last relationship and my mental health improved, why every time I cut off men from my life improves. Now, this isn't true for all men. It's true for most of them. So I met a new man a few months ago, and I was hesitant because he's like a lot of what I like, except his race. And it's the time he made a statement that pissed me off. And I was like, what? What? And if you know anything about me, it's that I have a tough exterior. Guys, I have a very tough exterior. But here, I am a soft caramel toffee. So this man offends me, and immediately he makes the statement. I think it was meant as a joke. He says it was meant as a joke. It hits him. You know, like I have been in those foot in mouth situations where I say something out loud and then I go like, why did I say that? Like, why did I not use my inside voice? So I could see, and we were chatting. I could see his regret because he paused, he typed, he stopped typing, he typed again. Then he's like, I'm sorry, I really should not have said that. And I'm like, yeah, you really should not have, because I thought I made it very clear that this is who I am. And I told him in my head, oh, I'm sure you're used to women claiming to be a certain thing and then proving to be something else. If there's anything he has learned about me these few months we've been together, it's that I am very consistent. And I tell men this, I am very consistent. When I start to be inconsistent, it's because I am trying to become a shapeshifter so as to deal with the nonsense that is you. For instance, if we have an agreement to work on a project together and we agree, this is the project we are working on. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parts. These are mine to do. These are yours to do. If I meet my end of the bargain once, I'll tell myself, not very many people are as good at planning as I am. Okay? I'll make excuses for you, especially if we started on the right foot. For men, I'll do this once. I don't give men second and third chances because I've learned that they take, because it's a man's world. They've never had to ask for permission to dress a certain way. They've never had to deal with a pregnancy scare. They've never had to fear an ectopic pregnancy. If they have a pain in their side, they're like, shit, is that my appendix? They don't know what it's like to have lower abdominal pain that could be a UTI from having sex for the first time in a long time, or having sex with someone whose semen is the consistency of oatmeal and the smell of uric acid and rabbit urine, just something in the middle of those two, because they don't drink water, they prefer to drink beer or something with sweeteners that's high concentrate sugar, low concentrate water. But I digress. So I give men one chance because I have no capacity for them. Why I started by singing what I was singing is because men have shown us what they think of us. You see, Hillary Clinton, they can forgive because she forgave her cheating husband. So they can vote for her. Plus, she's a white woman, and white women are the standard of beauty in the world. Notice how self-hating black men prefer women who are white. White in appearance, white in mannerisms, white in complexion, white. They can't cook, they can't clean, they're bad bitches. Yeah. Men generally prefer women like that. And especially self-hating black men. Black men who are white aspiring, like they aspire to be like cis-het white men, are also self-hating because they feel like the world owes them, like just give us. And they forget that black women and trans people, I forget whether it's trans women or trans men, who are at the bottom of the barrel. This is what I mean. Every time I say things like, must be nice to be a cis-het white man, I mean, it must be nice to just go about life with audacity and to not have to think of others. I attended a concert yesterday, and there's a man who was very offended that me and my white date was standing in front of him. And when I turned to look at him, he couldn't look at me, but he looked at this other man because, oh, how am I then looking at her? And then, so I'm assuming here, yeah, making assumptions because I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed, and I'm allowed to be annoyed considering how the elections have turned out. And in America. So, and then this man says, my date goes like, what's your issue? Like, I don't understand. And I immediately understand this issue because I'm like, I'm the only white black person within, like, I hadn't seen another black person around me. So, like, how dare I come to this concert and then stand in front of him? And I guess he also has short man syndrome. So, anyways, we step aside so he can move up ahead of us because his issue is that we are both, I guess, taller than him or towering over him. He pushes me. He doesn't push that man. He pushes me on his way to where he wants to stand, which had to be in front of me. This is my life when I leave the house. Every day I leave the house. That is why there are times when I go 48 hours without leaving the house because I can't stomach microaggressions every single day of the week. I have been treated very poorly just because I have dark skin. And poorly is also the opposite spectrum, which is, oh, you're very well spoken. I hate that statement. I fucking hate it. Because I know well-spoken people who are black. So what are you saying? That in your mind, meeting a well-spoken black person is such a rare thing. And what is well-spoken? That I speak nasal English, that I am able to code switch. I do it because I'm trying to survive. And I remember remember the first time someone went like, oh yeah, Chimamanda doesn't do it. And I'm like, well, I am not fucking Chimamanda. Like, I am not her. And I am not trying to be her. I admire her. And there are lots of things that she teaches that I ascribe to. I have all her books. I'm a huge fan of Chimamanda. I am not trying to be her. I am trying to be my most authentic self. But I don't have your privilege. I am not, I've not been born into circumstances that allow me to go about life with the audacity of a cis-het white man, a mediocre white man, or a black man. Like, I don't have that privilege. So when people go like, oh, you don't really have to change your accent when you're speaking to people, I'm like, F you. What do you know? It's easier for me to have a meeting with a client from the US or from Canada and to sound like this, where I change my accent so that they understand every single thing I'm saying. So I am not having to repeat myself. And it is easier for me to do this so that I spend 30 minutes being something I am not, so I can make the money I need to take care of my physical and emotional needs, therapy, food, rent, health insurance, transport, because I do use public transport, and all the other things that come with it. I'm a woman who gets her monthly period now. And so I need to take care of that. And then when the weather changes, I sometimes have to get medication for something. And I need to take ibuprofen every time I have my period. There are times when I need to take days off. So I do need to have a job that has pay slips. And then I also need to use this accent when I am working online so that people will pay me in euros and American dollars and whatever other currency there is out there in the global minority world so that I can afford to exist. And when I tell people that it is a privilege to be able to code switch, but it is also masking, which is terrible for our mental health, they think we are just complaining. Black women in America have been holding that country together by its roots for hundreds of years. You know why I am angry? Because I see myself in Kamala Harris. You will do everything right, and it's never enough. Because we are always out here just expecting Black women to be God. I was sexually assaulted by a man from my church who has been doing this for years, from the 90s. He still walks free because he's married with 3 children. That is not my problem. When he chose to pin me down and simulate sex over me, I had not seduced him. I had not touched him inappropriately. And the only reason I was in an enclosed space with him was because his close family member, and he was my Christian brother, his close family member, a brother who helped raise him, had died, and this was the second brother he was losing. I had left the door ajar and he complained that it was cold, and so I closed it. I was trying to, by all intents and purposes, keep an appearance of holiness. This is my problem with the white women who voted for Trump. We know you never wanted us, Black women, to catch up with you. We know. I mean, why would you want your maid to be your equal? It's the same way I'm just sat here listening to the African American women saying, oh, look at Black immigrants or African immigrants acting like the way they are acting, saying congratulations to the new president. You think we have a choice? Do you think we have a choice? IMF is the reason why we have roads and schools, because our governments and our presidents, who are puppets of the US and Europe, have been put there by these same nations our former colonizers who are still very currently colonizing us in our thought, in the way they give us aid and keep us dependent on them, in enforcing the treaties that have been signed and kept us enslaved all this time. You think we have a choice? We don't. If we don't kiss the ring of the king, what happens is we are left standing in the snow for 3 days until we develop gangrene. Have you forgotten that during COVID, some idiot man, just because he makes the 1% of the wealthiest in the world, said that Africa would be strewn with bodies because we refused the COVID-19 vaccine? We are not children of a lesser God, by the way. We really are not. Why we kiss ass? It's a trauma response. That's how we've always survived. We've grown up hearing our mothers and our aunties say, keep your legs together, your uncle is here. We've been raised in homes where we are not even safe to be children. You see, you say that you're called fast and you're adultified and all these other things. You don't think that that happens to us. Look at the femicide rates in Kenya. Feminists like myself are not even safe. We are not safe to exist. We are not allowed to dress the way we want. We have movements like My Dress, My Choice. Literally in the 2000s, while you are all fighting for the rights to, I don't know, maybe own property, women are still getting disinherited in Kenya by the families of their late husbands and harassed out of homes they invested in their 60s, 70s, 80s. We are still getting infected by HIV and AIDS. We're still dying because of cervical cancer and HPV because we have no power. Our health campaigns about birth control have to be targeted at men because in Africa in 2024, our bodies are not our own. I'm not allowed to get a tubal ligation if I'm married at the age of 37 without my husband's permission. In 2024, in Kenya, especially if I'm a Muslim woman. So you explain to me how it is you think we are just clapping and congratulating this misogynistic prick because we have a choice. So you've not heard of what's happening in the Congo. You've not heard that women in Sudan are choosing to unalive themselves so that they are not raped. You've not heard of Uganda getting rid of LGBTQ plus people and they are running into Kenya to meet with our tyrant president who is responsible for a massacre in Kiambaa where people were burnt alive in a church. You think we are clapping because we have a choice? You think we can choose? You think we can march on the streets like you? Go read on the femicide rates in Kenya. When Black women turn on each other like this, it infuriates me because I'm sat here thinking, so you're going to turn this on us? Those of us who know the axe has already fallen in the US and it's coming for us in Africa. I'm saying this from the safety of Germany. For now, this isn't my home. There's a very strong anti-immigrant sentiment in Germany right now. I have been called hot chocolate on a tram by an Arab man just because he was in a wheelchair and he thought I wouldn't fight him. And I raised my voice and I told him, do not think I will not fuck you up where you sit. So I am still a Black woman in Germany. I am still fetishized. I am still unsafe because I am not white passing. So when you speak of African immigrants, like we are this group, and then you mention Kenya, you get me riled up. I started by talking about my grandfather, and this is something he warned me about. He warned me about people that Chimamanda warned us about, people with one story about people. Sometimes we celebrate a tyrant coming into power because of proximity to power affording us a chance to survive. Any Black woman listening to this understands what I mean. Sometimes you have to kiss ass to survive. If you've worked in the corporate world, you know this. It's not like you think your boss is the most awesome person in the whole world, but you just lay your head low. And whenever they call you to give a vote of thanks and praise your company for the good job that it does, in spite of being half the reason why you have elevated blood pressure and trouble sleeping, you get on that podium. You know why? That is the paycheck that allows you to build a home for your parents in the village. That's a paycheck that allows you to pay rent. That's a paycheck that allows you health insurance, so that you're only using a thumbprint in this shit economy to get health insurance or to get the health care that you need. We've always had to kiss some ring in order to be able to enjoy certain benefits, whether it's a paycheck or a house or education or... So when I hear Black women, just because they're African American, turning on us as Black immigrants, I'm like, we are all Black. Did you bother to ask why we are behaving? Did you even think to read up on what's happening in our countries? We have just buried our children, 20-year-olds dying on the streets of Kenya, Nairobi, outside parliament, because our constitution is one thing. A sitting president is an actual other thing. This man has murdered children on the streets of Nairobi, and he is still serving as sitting president. People have been taxed so much money, it costs about their rent. Like, what has been cut out of paychecks is rent money. So you tell me why I would not congratulate Trump in order to get food. Think. Before you open your mouth, just think. Just think. And especially when you consider how many times as Black people we have had to appear to be in collaboration with the powers that oppress our people just so we can survive. Because sometimes when this tyrant calls you and they tell you they know where you live, and he's a sitting president, and he tells you he knows where your mother lives, and his head of security has been accused of things and that make your blood go cold, and people have been tortured and their bodies dumped in sacks after they've been repeatedly sexually assaulted, and there's evidence of torture when their bodies are found dumped somewhere. When that is the history of your country, and you're stuck in a foreign country where you're Black and a feminist, and you have dependents back home, a single mother, girls you've been teaching and mentoring, and kids you have fostered. I don't have any privilege. If, I don't know, the Israeli embassy decides to hire me today, you think I will refuse the job on principle and eat what? Because you're not offering to pay my bills? You people need to, people really need to wake up. People really need to wake up before, like, I know there's anger, but please direct it at the people who voted in this idiot. Because this thing you're falling for, this divide and conquer, is the method of our oppressors. That is what colonizers did. The French used assimilation. The Brits, it was destroy and divide and conquer. That's why we still have tribal warfare in 2024. And that is why I am sat here weeping, because I know that now that a man who referred to us as shithole countries has come into power, we are cooked. I've seen the groups that have been formed about migrating out of the US. Some of us have nowhere to go because there's xenophobia, right? I don't know how safe I would feel going to South Africa. I do not know if I can just go to Zambia. I know that Kenyans are generally not liked in Tanzania and Uganda and in Rwanda, and it's just. And then I'm also not safe back home because I'm a feminist and I am single, and I mean, like, that's ever stopped anyone, because married women are getting killed and raped left, right, and center anyway, the world over. So it's basically choosing whether you're going to be shot or hanged. It's which one? There's the one that will have you be put down with some dignity, and then there's one that will be slow and painful. But either way, the end goal is you are killed. I wish my grandfather were here today, not because of anything, but I would have a reasonable person to talk to about what's happening in the world. I'd have a safe space. I'd have at least one man in my life who I trust with everything, to just be honest and objective, and a place I can run to for safety. But he's not here, so I have to make do with whatever is left of men. And I can just lean on my female friends who believe in bringing each other up. It's a tough day for African Americans in and from the US. Remember, it's also a tough day for just any Black woman today, because America has proven to us what we've known all along. Men would rather be ruled by a man who threatens their freedom than be ruled by a Black woman who promises to take care of the needs of everyone. Because the ego trip, I would never let a woman rule over me. I'd never let a woman be a boss. We always suspected it, but it's one of those things, like when someone is telling you that your very sick loved one has passed away. When the news of my grandfather's passing reached me, it wasn't on the 23rd of June when he died. It was on the 1st of July, which was his birthday, and I had bought a birthday card and written all my feelings, all my 17-year-old feelings, thanking him for being the father I never had, and he never got to read them. I buried him in that card. I still feel bad that I didn't get to say goodbye. My consolation is that he knew I loved him. Our consolation as Black women is that we still have each other. We cannot afford to make this out to be a divide and conquer thing. We can't trust all our Black men, and we will always have to live at the mercy of a man until patriarchy falls. So, Black women, invest in Black-owned businesses. of people who give, not people who just take advantage of others, because we are not all allies. Black women, let's seek to see past certain things, certain issues, and remember we are all just black out here. And I'm speaking especially to my dark black sisters, that colorism has divided us, and tribe has divided us, and men have divided us. Like, I watch women fight over men, and I'm like, what is actually wrong with you? What is fundamentally wrong with you? Do you realize that this man is spoiled for choice and he's enjoying this thoroughly? Like, do you know that everyone has their person? I'm not saying the one. I'm just saying, so for instance, some idiot had the nerve to ask me when I'll be gaining weight because I've noticed he has a preference for thick women and he doesn't know how to keep his mouth shut about what he wants because he goes about life like that. He's used to asking for what he wants crudely, but he does it. Don't worry. He's no longer going to be in my life for much longer. But I remember talking about him with my new person, and and this person's like, but I really like you the way you are. And I said, so do I. It took me a while to get here, but so do I. And the reason why I'm with you is because I've finally gotten to a place where I pick men who like me as I am. Opinionated, feminist, hyper independent, likes to spend her own money, is busy, is a workaholic, likes to talk, is very expressive, is very emotional, and is an empath with a big heart and loves to give, 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 give. And he just sent me a message. It's like he can sense that I am talking about him. And so I met another me, a man with a big heart, a man who is kind, a man who apologizes when he offends, a man who is, to the best of my knowledge, being honest even about his shit. And at 36, that is a breath of fresh air. I catch him mansplaining and I tell him, no, this is what I want. Because again, he's used to having things his way. He's used to taking charge. He's used to being a dad and telling the kids what to do. And there are times when I have to remind him, you're still on dad mode. Pause. And I'm having a really good time. I remember telling him, I'm really proud of you for the decision you've made to be present in your children's lives. And I also told him, his daughter is very lucky to have this very present, very knowledgeable, very involved dad in her life. And then his son, oh God, to think that there's a boy being raised to turn out like him, it gives me hope. To have met him yesterday, and specifically for him to give me space to talk about how I felt as a Black woman, how much I missed my grandpa, it was life-giving. Ladies, there's better out there. As someone who has settled before more than once, choose you. It's literally like the Negro spiritual. Step into the water, Step into the water. Is it Moses or Peter? Because it should be Peter, but I think they sing Moses. But Moses did step on the water. Or was it Joshua so that the Jordan parted and the Ark of the Covenant passed through? But, and Peter had to step into the water anyway. Step into the water. You've already settled. This man has taken your youth, has taken your virginity, has you've lain there while he had sex with your body and you were just doing grocery shopping because you're like, "Ah, can you finish? I need to go." Because he pays your rent. I've been there. But as someone who's been there, I'm actually telling you, start planning your exit strategy. And I've done this with other women. If you're in an abusive relationship, you can leave with your life. And unfortunately, that's not true for everyone. Emotionally abusive, physically abusive, financially abusive, it's all abuse. You can leave. Sometimes it means you have to leave in 3 years. Sometimes when the kids are grown, or when they're old enough to be taken to boarding school so that you can run away. Sometimes leaving is in 5 years. Sometimes it's in 5 months. Start the exit plan. As someone who made it out with her life, and I'm not here saying, oh, my ex was like, he beat me. No, he did not. And that's the thing. It's harder to explain to people when the person who harmed you did not harm you by beating you and did not harm you by denying you food, but they did things to chip away at your self-esteem, whether it was withholding care or silent treatment or choosing to show another woman affection or sending money to a woman you're suspicious of for, and telling you that it's my money to do with as I please. Like, all those are forms of abuse. Let's not make little of them. But my message of hope is you can leave. I've watched women leave horrible situations where you've been beaten, situations where you've had sex against your will and like violently so. I have met and talked to women who have tiptoed for so long. It's taken them an additional few years to learn how to stop tiptoeing even around their female friends. You can leave. Hold on to the hope that one day you will leave. It may not be safe enough to leave right now because people will tell you to leave and then they will not give you a place to go. Ask me how I know. But you can leave and you should leave and hold on to that hope that you can and should. Asking for help for hyper independent women like myself is hard. When you look around and you're like, I don't have a dad to defend me, I have no man to threaten the idiots hurting me or messing with my mental health. But you have you. And the universe is kind. Someone will be sent your way. I just know it. So hang in there.